John D. Rockefeller once said, "Competition is a sin." And he meant it. Between 1870 and 1911, he built the most ruthless monopoly in American history, controlling 90% of all oil refined in the United States. He didn't just dominate the market, he destroyed it, rebuilt it, and owned every piece. His company, Standard Oil, became known as the Octopus because its tentacles reached into every aspect of American life. But here's what they don't teach you in school. When the government finally broke up his monopoly, Rockefeller became even richer. The 34 pieces of Standard Oil turned into Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, and dozens of other giants. Today, the Rockefeller family fortune isn't the $11 billion they admit to. It's likely in the trillions, hidden in foundations, trusts, and institutions that control everything from your medicine to your education to your money itself. You think you know wealth? The Rockefellers redefined it. They didn't just accumulate money, they created the system that generates it. They wrote the rules, built the infrastructure, and positioned themselves to profit from every transaction in the modern economy. When you fill up your gas tank, when you take medicine, when you get a vaccine, when you borrow money, somewhere in that chain, a Rockefeller entity profits. They're not just rich, they're structurally embedded in the architecture of capitalism itself. But let's start at the beginning. Cleveland, Ohio, 1863. John Davison Rockefeller is 24 years old, running a small produce business. The Civil War is raging. Most young men are fighting. Rockefeller pays $300 for a substitute to take his place. He has no interest in dying for his country. He has interest in one thing: accumulation. While others fight, he calculates. He sees something everyone else misses. This new substance, petroleum, bubbling up from the Pennsylvania ground, it's going to replace whale oil. It's going to light the world. And whoever controls the refining controls everything. His first refinery costs $4,000. Within 2 years, it's the largest in Cleveland. But Rockefeller isn't satisfied with being big. He wants to be everything. He approaches smaller refiners with an offer: sell to me or I'll destroy you. It's not a threat. It's a mathematical certainty. He's negotiated secret rebates with the railroads. Not only does he pay less to ship his oil, but the railroads actually pay him a percentage of what his competitors pay. Every barrel his competition ships makes Rockefeller money. It's diabolical, it's brilliant, it's completely illegal, and it works. By 1870, Rockefeller forms Standard Oil of Ohio. The name is deliberately boring. Nothing threatening about Standard. But behind that bland name is a machine of unprecedented corporate violence. Rockefeller doesn't just compete, he annihilates. He buys up all the barrels in a region so competitors can't ship oil. He purchases all the railroad cars. He bribes legislators. He plants spies in rival companies. When a competitor refuses to sell, mysterious accidents happen. Refineries explode. Equipment fails. Banks suddenly call in loans. The message is clear: join Standard Oil or cease to exist. The South Improvement Company scheme of 1872 is his masterpiece of corruption. Rockefeller secretly organizes the major railroads and refiners into a cartel. The plan? Double shipping rates for everyone, then give massive rebates to cartel members. But here's the evil genius part. Standard Oil gets rebates not just on their own shipments, but on their competitors' shipments too. It's like charging your enemy for bullets while you shoot them. When the scheme is exposed, public outrage explodes. The Pennsylvania legislature revokes the company's charter, but it's too late. In just 3 months, Rockefeller has used the threat of the scheme to buy out 22 of Cleveland's 26 competitors. The Cleveland Massacre, as it becomes known, is complete. Rockefeller now controls 90% of Cleveland's refining capacity. But Cleveland is just the beginning. He moves on to Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York. The pattern is always the same: secret railroad deals, price wars, espionage, sabotage, purchase. By 1879, Standard Oil controls 90% of American refining. The octopus has wrapped its tentacles around the entire industry, but controlling refining isn't enough. Rockefeller wants everything. He buys pipelines, railroad tank cars, retail stations. He creates fake companies that pretend to compete with Standard Oil, but actually funnel profits back to the mother company. He establishes a vast intelligence network. Every shipment by every competitor is tracked, every deal monitored, every weakness exploited. Standard Oil knows what competitors are planning before they do. It's corporate omniscience achieved through bribery, blackmail, and infiltration. The numbers are staggering. In 1870, kerosene cost 26 cents per gallon. By 1880, under Rockefeller's monopoly, it's 8 cents. He's made it cheaper by destroying competition, but he's also captured all the profit. Standard Oil's dividend in 1882 is $39 million. That's $1.2 billion today from one company in 1 year. Rockefeller personally owns 27% of it. He's making $300 million per year in today's money. But money isn't the goal. Power is. Rockefeller's management style is unprecedented. He keeps meticulous books, every penny tracked, every inefficiency eliminated. He standardizes everything. Same barrels, same railroad cars, same accounting methods across the entire empire. He pioneers vertical integration, controlling every step from drilling to retail. He creates the modern corporation structure, a board of trustees that controls dozens of companies that control hundreds of subsidiaries. It's a pyramid of power with Rockefeller at the apex. But his real innovation is hiding ownership. Standard Oil is actually hundreds of companies with different names, seemingly independent, actually controlled by the same small group of men. When regulators investigate one company, the others continue operating. When one state bans Standard Oil, it operates under different names. The company becomes a shape-shifting hydra. Cut off one head, 3 more appear. It's corporate camouflage perfected decades before anyone else even attempts it. The human cost is devastating. Independent refiners are driven to bankruptcy and suicide. Workers in Standard Oil facilities face horrific conditions. When they strike, Rockefeller hires Pinkerton guards who break strikes with clubs and guns. The Bayonne refinery strike of 1915 leaves 13 dead. The Ludlow massacre of 1914, at a Rockefeller-owned mine, sees the National Guard machine gun and burn a tent colony of striking workers. 20 people die, including 11 children. Rockefeller's response? He hires the first public relations firm to clean up his image. By 1890, Senator John Sherman calls Standard Oil the most dangerous conspiracy against the public interest ever attempted. The Sherman Antitrust Act is passed specifically to break Rockefeller's monopoly. But Rockefeller just restructures. Standard Oil becomes a trust, then a holding company, then a New Jersey corporation. Each restructuring makes it harder to attack while maintaining absolute control. The government passes laws. Rockefeller's lawyers find loopholes. It's a chess game where Rockefeller is always 3 moves ahead. The muckrakers start exposing the truth. Ida Tarbell's History of Standard Oil, serialized in McClure's magazine from 1902 to 1904, reveals the full scope of Rockefeller's crimes. She documents the secret rebates, the espionage, the sabotage, the bribery. Public opinion turns violently against Rockefeller. He's depicted as an octopus strangling the nation. Death threats arrive daily. He travels with bodyguards. He becomes a recluse, rarely seen in public. But Rockefeller doesn't care about public opinion. He cares about compound interest. While the public rages, he's quietly diversifying. He's buying banks, railroads, steel companies, mines. He's creating foundations that will control education and medicine. He's building a fortune so vast, so interconnected, that breaking up Standard Oil won't matter. He's playing a longer game than anyone realizes. He's not building a company, he's building a dynasty that will last centuries. May 15th, 1911. The Supreme Court of the United States delivers its verdict. Standard Oil must be dissolved. The monopoly that took 40 years to build must be broken into 34 separate companies within 6 months. Chief Justice White reads the decision to a packed courtroom. Standard Oil is guilty of unreasonable restraint of trade. The octopus must die. Journalists rush to file stories. Rockefeller empire falls. The headlines scream. But in his estate in Pocantico Hills, John D. Rockefeller is playing golf. When told of the decision, he tells his partners to buy Standard Oil stock. He knows something everyone else is about to learn. Breaking up Standard Oil will make him richer than ever. Here's the magic trick nobody saw coming. Rockefeller owns 27% of Standard Oil. After the breakup, he owns 27% of all 34 new companies. Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, Amoco, Conoco, Atlantic Richfield. He owns major stakes in all of them. And without antitrust restrictions, these competing companies can now expand into territories previously forbidden. They can vertically integrate in ways the monopoly couldn't. The stock market goes insane. Standard Oil shares trading at $360 before the breakup are worth $975 after. Rockefeller's net worth doubles overnight. The government tried to destroy him and instead made him the richest man in human history. By 1913, Rockefeller's fortune hits $900 million, equivalent to $25 billion today. But that's just the visible wealth. The real money is flowing into something new, something that will ensure Rockefeller power for centuries. Foundations. The Rockefeller Foundation, established in 1913 with $100 million, isn't charity. It's a tax-exempt vehicle for social control. Through it, the Rockefellers will reshape medicine, education, science, and culture to serve their interests while appearing philanthropic. The medical takeover is methodical and complete. In 1910, the Rockefeller Foundation funds the Flexner Report, which investigates American medical schools. The report's conclusion: only medical schools that follow the Johns Hopkins model, focused on patented drugs and surgery, should survive. Alternative medicine, homeopathy, natural healing, all labeled quackery. Of 160 medical schools, only 66 survive the report's recommendations. The survivors receive massive Rockefeller grants, but with strings attached. Curriculum must emphasize pharmaceutical solutions. Research must focus on patentable treatments. Professors who resist are replaced. Within a decade, the Rockefellers control American medicine. They fund the American Medical Association. They establish the China Medical Board. They create medical schools globally. Every doctor trained in the Rockefeller system learns that petroleum-based pharmaceuticals are the only legitimate medicine. It's vertical integration applied to human health. Rockefeller owns the oil. His companies produce the chemicals. His foundations train the doctors to prescribe them. His investment firms own shares in pharmaceutical companies. Every prescription written puts money in Rockefeller pockets. The education control is equally systematic. The General Education Board, founded in 1903 with Rockefeller money, doesn't just fund schools. It reshapes them. John D. Rockefeller Jr. writes the mission: "In our dreams, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands." That's not education. That's programming. The board promotes practical education over critical thinking. It emphasizes vocational training over liberal arts. It creates a workforce smart enough to operate machines, but not smart enough to question the system. By 1920, the Rockefeller Foundation is spending more on education than the entire U.S. government. They control curriculum development, teacher training, textbook publishing. They fund universities but require representation on boards. They establish think tanks that produce independent research supporting Rockefeller interests. The University of Chicago, founded with Rockefeller money, becomes the intellectual center of free market capitalism. Not because the free market works, but because it works for the Rockefellers. Now let's talk about what nobody discusses: the Rockefeller role in creating the Federal Reserve. In 1910, a secret meeting occurs on Jekyll Island, Georgia. 7 men, representing a quarter of the world's wealth, gathered to design America's central banking system. Among them is Frank Vanderlip, president of National City Bank of New York, Rockefeller's bank. The plan they create becomes the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, a private central bank with the power to print money, controlled by the very bankers it's supposed to regulate. The Rockefellers don't just influence the Fed, they own key positions. National City Bank, later Citibank, and Chase National Bank, later Chase Manhattan, then J.P. Morgan Chase, are Rockefeller institutions. They get perpetual access to Fed money at low rates, which they lend at higher rates. It's the ultimate scam. Print money from nothing, lend it at interest, own the political system that enforces repayment. When banks fail, taxpayers bail them out. When banks succeed, Rockefellers keep the profits. Heads they win, tails we lose. World War I makes the Rockefellers even richer. Standard Oil companies supply fuel to all sides. They sell to the Allies through American subsidiaries. They sell to Germany through neutral country subsidiaries. When America enters the war, they get cost-plus government contracts. The more they spend, the more they profit. Rockefeller-controlled banks loan money to governments to buy Rockefeller oil. The interest on war loans continues for decades. They profit from the war, the debt, and the reconstruction. The 1920s bring new opportunities. Rockefeller money floods into German industry, rebuilding it after World War I. Standard Oil partners with IG Farben, the German chemical giant. They share patents, technology, and profits. When World War II begins, this partnership continues through Swiss intermediaries. Standard Oil provides the Nazis with synthetic rubber technology, aviation fuel additives, and other crucial war materials. After the war, investigators discover Standard Oil could have shortened the war by not supplying Germany. The Rockefellers' response? They had fiduciary duty to shareholders. John D. Rockefeller dies in 1937 at age 97, worth officially $1.4 billion. But the fortune is already hidden in trusts, foundations, and holding companies. His son, John D. Rockefeller Jr., inherits not just wealth but a system. Jr. builds Rockefeller Center, funds the United Nations building, and creates Colonial Williamsburg. These aren't just projects. They're monuments to power, ways of embedding the family name in American identity while hiding the fortune's true scope. The third generation takes it global. The 5 Rockefeller brothers, John III, Nelson, Lawrence, Winthrop, and David, divide the empire. Nelson becomes Vice President of the United States. David runs Chase Manhattan Bank, becoming the de facto ambassador of American capitalism. They create the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are documented organizations where business leaders, politicians, and academics meet privately to coordinate policy that, coincidentally, always benefits the Rockefellers. David Rockefeller, who dies in 2017 at 101, is particularly influential. As Chase Manhattan's CEO, he negotiates with every world leader from Joe Enlai to Fidel Castro. He bails out New York City in 1975. He creates the petrodollar system with Saudi Arabia, ensuring all oil trades in dollars, forcing the world to use American currency, maintaining dollar dominance despite having no gold backing. Every dollar printed, every oil barrel sold, enriches the Rockefeller system. The family's control of intelligence services is rarely discussed, but thoroughly documented. Allen Dulles, CIA director, is a Rockefeller lawyer. His brother John Foster Dulles, Secretary of State, is chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation. The CIA's early operations are funded through Rockefeller foundations, providing plausible deniability for covert actions. The overthrow of Iran's Mossadegh in 1953, he threatened oil interests. Guatemala's Arbenz in 1954, he threatened United Fruit, where Rockefellers had interests. The pattern is consistent. Governments that challenge Rockefeller interests face mysterious coups. Today, if you Google Rockefeller family net worth, you'll find figures ranging from $11 billion to $15 billion. This is laughable. It's like saying the ocean is a puddle. The real Rockefeller fortune is hidden in a labyrinth of trusts, foundations, holding companies, and institutional investments so complex that no forensic accountant could fully map it. Conservative estimates by researchers who've spent decades tracking Rockefeller assets suggest the family controls between $500 billion and $1 trillion. But even that might be low. When you own pieces of every major bank, every pharmaceutical company, every oil corporation, how do you even calculate net worth? Let's trace the money. The Rockefeller Foundation alone has given away over $40 billion since 1913. That's just what they've given away. The principle remains intact, growing. The Rockefeller Brothers Fund, another foundation, has distributed billions more. The David Rockefeller Fund, the Rockefeller Family Fund, dozens of other foundations, each with billions in assets. These foundations own stocks, bonds, real estate. They control but don't technically own assets, avoiding taxes while maintaining power. It's financial engineering that would make modern hedge funds weep with envy. Chase Manhattan Bank, David Rockefeller's baby, merged with J.P. Morgan in 2000 to create J.P. Morgan Chase. Chase, now worth $500 billion with $3.7 trillion in assets. The Rockefellers remain major shareholders through various trusts. ExxonMobil, worth $450 billion, still has Rockefeller institutional investors. Chevron, worth $350 billion. Same story. The family learned long ago, don't own companies directly, own them through foundations, trusts, and institutional funds. Maintain control without visible ownership. The pharmaceutical control is particularly insidious. Every major drug company has Rockefeller fingerprints. Pfizer, founded with Rockefeller Associate Capital. Merck, developed with Rockefeller Institute Research. Johnson & Johnson, Bristol-Myers Squibb, all interconnected with Rockefeller foundations and investments. When COVID-19 hit, who profited most? Pharmaceutical companies producing vaccines. Who owns shares in all of them? Rockefeller-connected investment funds. It's not conspiracy. It's business structure designed over a century. The Gates connection deserves special attention. Bill Gates Sr. served on the board of Planned Parenthood, founded with Rockefeller money. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation partners extensively with Rockefeller Foundation. Gates's vaccination programs, his agriculture initiatives, his education reforms, all follow blueprints created by Rockefellers decades earlier. Is Gates a Rockefeller puppet? Number. But he's operating within systems Rockefellers designed, using methods they pioneered. Achieving goals they established. The World Health Organization, established in 1948, was conceived at the Rockefeller Foundation-funded International Health Division. The WHO's first Director General, Brock Chisholm, was a Rockefeller Foundation veteran. Today's global health infrastructure, the very concept that health should be managed by international organizations, is a Rockefeller creation. When WHO declares a pandemic, recommends treatments, or sets policy, it's using frameworks Rockefellers established. Every vaccine mandate, every health passport, every biosecurity measure follows patterns the family pioneered. Modern Rockefellers are invisible by design. You won't see them on Forbes lists. They don't seek publicity. The fourth and fifth generations, there are over 170 living descendants, work through institutions. They're on boards of museums, universities, think tanks. They're partners at law firms, investment banks, consulting companies. They don't need to be billionaires personally when they control trillions institutionally. The climate change movement, regardless of your opinion on it, is heavily Rockefeller influenced. The family that made its fortune from oil now funds environmental organizations. The Rockefeller Brothers Fund divested from fossil fuels in 2014. Why would they abandon their historical source of wealth? Because they're not abandoning it. They're transitioning it. Carbon credits, renewable energy, electric vehicles all require massive infrastructure changes that Rockefeller-connected companies will build. They're not saving the planet. They're monetizing the transition. Consider BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, with $10 trillion under management. Larry Fink, its CEO, is a Council on Foreign Relations member, a Rockefeller organization. BlackRock's Aladdin system manages $21 trillion, a quarter of global financial assets. Through BlackRock and similar firms, Rockefeller Connected Interests own shares in every significant corporation. They vote those shares. They influence policy. They don't need to own companies when they control the funds that own the companies. The 9/11 connection is particularly dark. The World Trade Center was built by David Rockefeller's initiative. His brother Nelson, as New York governor, used eminent domain to seize the land. The towers were Rockefeller projects from conception to destruction. David had an office on the 56th floor of Tower 1. He wasn't there on September 11, 2001. The attacks justified wars that dramatically increased oil prices, enriching every Rockefeller-connected energy company. Coincidence? Maybe. Profitable? Absolutely. The current push for digital currency and cashless society? Rockefeller initiatives from decades ago. David Rockefeller wrote in his memoirs about the need for supranational sovereignty and a global currency. Every step toward digital money, from credit cards to cryptocurrency to central bank digital currencies, moves toward their vision of controlled, traceable, programmable money. When cash disappears, when every transaction is digital, who controls the infrastructure? Banks and tech companies riddled with Rockefeller influence. The food system transformation happening now, lab-grown meat, insect protein, vertical farming, follows Rockefeller Foundation reports from years ago. They funded the green revolution that made agriculture dependent on petroleum-based fertilizers and pesticides. Now they're funding the next revolution, artificial food. Bill Gates buying farmland, Beyond Meat going public, insects promoted as protein, all align with Rockefeller Foundation initiatives. They're not feeding the world. They're controlling what the world eats. Education remains completely captured. Common Core standards, developed with Gates Foundation money, following Rockefeller models. Critical race theory, funded by foundations following Rockefeller pioneered social engineering. Student debt crisis, created by education inflation funded by foundation grants requiring matching funds, forcing universities to raise tuition. Every aspect of American education, from kindergarten through graduate school, operates within systems Rockefellers designed. The media control is subtle but pervasive. The Rockefellers don't own networks directly. They fund journalism schools, provide grants to media organizations, and sit on boards of media companies. The Columbia School of Journalism, which trains many American journalists, receives significant Rockefeller funding. The Council on Foreign Relations, a Rockefeller organization, provides expert commentators to every major network. When you watch news, you're often watching Rockefeller-approved narratives delivered by Rockefeller-trained journalists, quoting Rockefeller-connected experts. But here's the ultimate revelation. The Rockefellers won by making their victory invisible. Unlike the Rothschilds, who maintained mystique, or modern billionaires who seek attention, the Rockefellers disappeared into the infrastructure. They became the system itself. You can't boycott them because they're everywhere. You can't fight them because they're invisible. You can't even prove their influence because it's structured through so many layers of separation. The Ludlow Massacre of 1914, where Rockefeller hired guards killed striking workers and their families, should have destroyed the family reputation forever. Instead, they hired Ivy Lee, the first public relations professional, to rehabilitate their image. They became philanthropists. They built museums. They funded hospitals. They transformed from robber barons to benefactors. It's the greatest reputational laundering in history. The family that built its fortune on monopoly, violence, and exploitation is now seen as charitable. What's their end game? Documents from Rockefeller organizations reveal a consistent vision: global governance, population reduction, controlled economics, and managed society. Not through conquest, but through complexity. Create systems so intricate, so interconnected, that they become indispensable. Control healthcare, and you control life. Control education, and you control thought. Control money, and you control everything. The tragedy is that exposing this doesn't matter. The system is too embedded. Every university that might research Rockefeller influence depends on foundation grants. Every media outlet that might investigate has Rockefeller-connected advertisers or board members. Every politician who might challenge them needs campaign contributions from Rockefeller-influenced donors. The cage is complete, and we built it ourselves with their blueprints. As we face the future, digital currencies, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, space colonization, remember that the frameworks for controlling these technologies are already established by organizations the Rockefellers created or influenced. The future isn't being invented. It's being implemented according to plans written decades ago in foundation reports nobody reads. The Rockefeller story isn't history, it's prophecy. What John D. Rockefeller started with kerosene in Cleveland has evolved into a system of control so sophisticated that it doesn't need enforcement. We enforce it ourselves. We go to Rockefeller-influenced schools, take Rockefeller-developed medicine, work for Rockefeller-connected companies, and deposit our paychecks in Rockefeller-founded banks. The octopus didn't die in 1911. It evolved, adapted, and won. The question isn't whether the Rockefellers control the world. They don't need to. They built the operating system the world runs on. And like any operating system, it's invisible to users who just want their apps to work. The genius of the Rockefeller empire is that it doesn't feel like an empire. It feels like reality, and that's why it's undefeatable. You can't fight what you can't see. You can't resist what you don't recognize as control. You can't escape what has become the very structure of modern life. This is the true Rockefeller legacy, not the billions they accumulated, but the systems they created. Systems that persist, profit, and control long after the builders are gone. John D. Rockefeller didn't just win at capitalism. He redesigned it to ensure his family would win forever. And so far they have.